Hi, welcome to episode 539 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns in my Etsy store called The Corner of Knit and Tea, and actually I just added 3 new spins to that. Hi, I hope you're doing well. It is Monday, September 29th. We are all the way through September. We only have 1 quarter left of the year. This year has just flown by. I hope that you are doing well. I am coming to you a little earlier today. It's mid to late morning, coming up on the lunch hour, and I am coming to you from just kind of outside or within the Kansas City metro area, but just outside of Kansas City. And I am desperately awaiting fall. It is still in the 80s here, and I am about to go on a business trip to Houston this week where it is the 90s. So it is definitely not cool yet, but I am keeping my fingers crossed that fall temperatures and weather will start soon. So I actually had a really productive week. Last week I said I was going to try and finish some things, and I really did. I also have had some interesting things happen in the last couple of weeks that I will discuss a little bit on the podcast today. I have lots to show you today. I have knitting, spinning, sewing, so let's get into it. Today I am drinking number 33 masala chai tea from Stephen Smith. I got turned on to Stephen Smith tea maker through Church Mouse Yarn and Teas, which was a yarn shop on Bainbridge Island in Washington. And so they have lovely teas. And today I am drinking some chai in my Hershey's mug. I know it's not a chai mug, but I am drinking some chai. And like I said, thinking fall thoughts. I just hung my Halloween quilt right here. And so I am in the throes of fall. October is here. It's officially fall. Let's do this thing. So let's talk about knitting. I have a few things to share with you. First of all, I told you last week I was going to finish the sweater, and I have. It is not washed and blocked yet, but all the ends are woven in, and so it has 2 sleeves and a full sweater, and it is lovely. So this is the Cove Cardigan by Heidi May. A pattern is only available on Ravelry. I did make some modifications. The first is that the largest size it goes up to, I think, is a 10-11, and I needed to make it to a 12. So I went ahead and upsized it a little bit. The other 2 mods that I made is the sweater is a top-down raglan cardigan. It has a really beautiful button band, a leaf lace button band that is lovely, and so I stuck with that. The 2 modifications that I made are, one, it calls for once you've gone down to a little bit below the underarm, it calls for sort of a I don't want to say a gathering because it's the reverse of that, but it looks like a gathered back, and so you make a bunch of increases, and so it creates almost a little ruffle, and the back looks a little bit gathered, and it creates some extra fabric. I did not choose to do that. I chose to leave mine straight. The other thing is that the pattern only calls for like half sleeves, basically elbow length, and I went ahead and did whole sleeves on it. So I calculated how long the sleeve should be. I used the Craft Yarn Council as a loose guide for that. Added an inch because my girl is all arms and legs, and I hoped that she would have a little bit to grow into, and then just added some ribbing at the end to match the ribbing on the rest of the sweater. So it is done. It, like I said, all the ends are woven in. All I need to do now is wash and block, and I am super thrilled about that. It came out beautifully. The yarn is Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Pines. The yarn is machine washable and tumble dry on low heat. I have had some success with that in the past. It does change the consistency of the yarn just a little bit. And so I would say, you may or may not want to do that when you make your own. I try and knit for the kids in washable yarn so that because they are kids and they still are pretty rough on their clothes, and I don't want my sister to have to hand wash everything. So I do kind of set that up for her, but that is the sweater, and it is complete. So I have some socks going. I didn't make much progress on those this week, although I am going out of town for business this weekend, and I'm going to Quilt Market. It's my first. Let me think about this. for a second, I lost my train of thought. I do have a couple pairs of socks going, and I'm going out of town for business, and I have a flight this weekend, so I will be taking those socks with me. But I had to decide what to cast on for next, and I spent the better part of last week sort of moaning to my friends about the fact that I don't really know what to cast on next. I kind of want to knit. I am excited about it, but I also couldn't find a project that really was speaking to me. I was joking that I have knitters on Wii for some reason. Nothing really was like cast me on right now. And so I put together some different sweater quantities, and I thought about a bunch of different things, and then I thought, I don't know what I want to knit right now, and I don't want to try and force myself to get into a knit right now. So why don't I knit something that I know will be useful? I know what I want to make with it, even though it's not for me. Let's just do it. And I have a quantity of yarn that I had bought ages ago from Craftsy, back before it was Blueprint, and then Craftsy again, and then went out of business again. So I had a sweater quantity or blanket quantity of Cloudborne. It was called Highland DK, and while I have some questions about whether it's actually DK because it doesn't feel like a DK to me. Anyway, I had a little over 1,000 yards of it, and I decided that what I wanted to do was knit a blanket for charity. And so I looked it up, and I got all the specs on it, and I decided that I was going to do that. And then because it was thin, and the project that I wanted to make it for asks for thicker yarns and kind of denser knits, I decided that maybe I would hold it together with something. And I had a whole bag of leftover skeins of yarn from when I was sample knitting for Zen Yarn Garden. And it appealed to me because I was thinking it's all kind of the same weight of yarn. And so the even though the colors are different, I could make a blanket that in basically 2 weights of yarn together. So I decided to hold them together and cast on, and I cast on last Thursday. And apparently this was exactly what I wanted to knit because I already have almost 6 inches. So this is the blanket. I am knitting, I believe it's called Garter Rib Blanket by Orange Flower Knits, and it is available through Ravelry, but also on her site. So I will go ahead and it's a free pattern, and I will go ahead and put the link to that in the show notes. And so what I am doing is I am holding the orange yarn along with a variety of fingering weight yarns in a variety of colors. You can see I have some really colorful ones and then some white speckled ones. And so what I am doing is this is the Highland DK, and it is in Autumn Heather, and I have quite a few skeins of this one. And then I have a bag full of, like I said, leftover skeins of knits that I did when I was working for Zen Yarn Garden. I don't think this will get me through all the way the blanket. I don't think this will get me all the way through the blanket. So I will definitely have to find more. But I found a couple skeins that I thought I might like to use in this project. And so I think I'm just going to make it a leftovers project. And I am just going to crank on this until I get bored of it, or it's finished, or I need more yarn or something. So like I said, this is the Garter Rib Blanket, and it's lovely. It's easy. I do 6 or 8 rows at a time and put it down and then pick up a new ball. And I am just tying them together with magic knots, but I'm leaving the tails. I will probably weave in the tails. So there will be a lot of ends to weave in at the end, but like I said, they're already tied in magic knots, so I'm not worried about them coming apart. So, and I am on my second skein of this one, and I may even need to buy more of this one to make the size blanket that I want. But I'm titling this kind of yarn in my stash that I wanted to use up and get out. I have had this yarn in my stash for probably 6 to 8 years, and I knew that I wasn't sure that I wanted to make something for myself. And so once I decided I just wanted to do this project, I just got it together and started. And I'm just going to keep working on it, and it will be done soon. And then I will either I have one cause I would like to donate it to, but the other thing I might do is I might just hold it along with the quilts that I have been doing and holding onto. And the next time there is a natural disaster or a call for blankets or quilts, I could send it off then. And so I'm just pleased to be using it and cleaning up some yarn in my stash. I don't know if you have this, but sometimes when I have, and actually it's a good argument against having a huge stash, and I would actually make this argument, is that your tastes change over time, and the things you think you're going to want to knit with, you don't necessarily end up wanting to knit with. And so I bought this yarn ages ago. I made another sweater out of it. The sweater wore a little differently than I expected it to. And so I had this yarn and I knew I wanted to use it for a charity knit, but I just didn't know when. And I used to be so busy with sample knitting and my own knitting that I just felt like I didn't have time for it. But now, now that I don't do as much sample knitting anymore and I have a full drawer of sweaters and socks and things, I just decided it was time to get this yarn out of my stash. So, I was joking that I was going to host an informal Get This Yarn Out of My Stash knit along. If you would like to play along with me, this is probably for the next month or two. If you have yarn in your stash that you would like to do something with because either your tastes have changed or you've been holding on to it forever or you've been meaning to do something with it, cast on and do something with it. I mean, I am super excited. And because this is a sweater quantity and a bag and probably a couple bags of minis that have been taking up space in my stash, I feel like I'm actually going to clear space in my stash. So, and I actually have another quantity of yarn. It's much smaller. I might knit a sweater or something with it, but I have another 600 yards of yarn that I know that I'm not going to knit something for myself with, and I have just been hanging on to them, and so I think that's my next target. But right now, this one is for this, and honestly, like I said, it's just because I have a whole list of things that I maybe want to knit one day, and nothing really grabbed me and was like, knit me right now. So for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be working on socks for my niece and nephew and maybe a pair or two for myself because I've got a couple pairs of those in there. And then that blanket. So that is kind of what I'm working on this month. I also was having a moment because Nanny Swaymo will start in November, which is National Knit a Sweater Month. And I have a sweater that I would sort of like to knit for that. And that was kind of the only thing that was sounding appealing to me, but I didn't want to cast on now because I want to knit it in November. So, all of these arbitrary knitting rules that I put on myself, but for now, I'm going to work on something that makes me happy, that gets some yarn out of my stash, and is just kind of mindless and fun. So that is where I'm at with that. Sip of tea, and then we'll go on to spinning. So last week, I believe I showed you two bobbins of singles that I was getting ready to apply. And that is now plied, and it is a skein that is up in my shop. This is called Still Air, and it was a fiber from Hello Yarn, and it is BFL, which means it is soft enough to be worn close to the skin, but it is also kind of long stapled and lustrous and a little bit silky. It looks like I got 311 yards, so that's about a sport weight out of 3.8 ounces, 109 grams, and it is kind of in magentas and teals, and then some pinks and peaches and lavenders, and it is lovely. It would make great socks, or a small accessory, or maybe hat and mittens, anything you want to make it, and it is up in the shop. I put that up this weekend, so if that appeals to you, that is there. I also had time to start on another spin late last week, and so I did, and this is Polworth, and it is from Fat Cat Knits. I used to be a patron of hers when she had a huge website. Now she mostly sells through Etsy, but she sells all kinds of stuff. And this is Lorelei, which is some reds and magentas, and then some blue, and you've got some lavender in there, and then also some teal. So some of the similar colors and greens, some of the similar colors from last time. To me, it almost looks like it could be Christmas colorways a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I know it's not supposed to be that. This is about half the fiber. The rest of it is on the wheel. I am almost done with the first bobbin, and then this would be the second bobbin. So I'm going to keep working on that, and I am enjoying that. Her fiber is delightful. It is beautifully prepped, and it drafts like a dream, and I love her colors. So that is what I'm working on this week. This one will probably also go into the shop. I'm kind of on a single skein shop spin jag right now, and so I'm trying to keep up with that a little bit and add a few new things to the shop. So I have some, well, I have some exciting things happening. I'm not going to talk in too many details about it because the story is not exactly mine to tell. But I have a friend who is moving house, and so she is downsizing and getting rid of some things. And she offered me some lovely items that she has, and I'm not talking stash, I'm talking like machines, machines and tools, and I cannot thank her enough for thinking of me, and she has been so kind and generous. But one of the things that she sent me is she sent me her Juki sewing machine. So I have had a new to me sewing machine to play with, and it arrived actually while I was in Hamilton. So about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, almost, it arrived while I was in Hamilton, and I unpacked it last weekend, and I was really intimidated because it had a slightly more complicated threading process than I have been sewing on a hand-me-down Singer, which is a fairly base level model, and I have been making it work, but it has been kind of an interesting learning curve. This is quite an upgrade. It's a somewhat fancier machine. It still only does straight stitch, but it is a much fancier machine than mine. And so I was really intimidated by it. And so I waited until I had some quiet time this weekend to sit down and learn how to thread the machine. And I really thought it was going to take me a while. And it turns out that with the manual, I had it threaded in maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And I sewed on it, and it was like it had been fine even after shipping through the mail. It was lovely, and there was enough thread in the bobbin to keep going. And so I actually made my first project on the machine this weekend. I am a member of the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild, and one of our charity projects for this year is this month, or October, we are turning in pillowcases for foster care kids. We have partnered up with a foster care facility in Kansas City, and so we are donating fun kids pillowcases so that when they send kids to a foster family, they can send them with a few things that they can call their own, and one of those is a pillowcase. So we were encouraged to find some fun fabric and make some simple pillowcases, and so I did that in about an hour this weekend on the sewing machine. It was beautiful. I did not fight with the machine at all. Everything worked perfectly, and I now have 2 really cute pillowcases. So I purchased fabric from Missouri Star. I know, big surprise. This is the Jungle collection from Whistler Studios. And this is kind of an all-over jungle print with all kinds of animals, lions and zebras and elephants and giraffes. And then there's also like a little monkey in there. And there's also kind of a toucan or a parrot in there. Which doesn't actually make sense for jungle, but a bird in there. There's all kinds of stuff, although I guess there are palm trees too. Anyway, this is kind of fun fabric, and then I also purchased some giraffe spotted fabric. And basically the way the pillowcase pattern that I use works is you need 3/4 of a yard for the main area of the pillowcase, and then you need 1/4 of a yard for the cuff. And so I ordered 2 yards of fabric, and then I just basically made opposite pillowcases. So I got 2 out of 2 yards of fabric, which is great. This is it's called the burrito pillowcase method. And what it does is not only does it encase your seams up at the cuff at the top, and you do that by kind of rolling it up in a burrito as you're sewing it. It also has French seams, which means you sew the seams twice. You sew them first at your 1/4 of an inch, and then you fold them over the opposite direction and sew them again, so that basically all the rough edges of your fabric are encased in fabric. So there are no, there's no rough edges on the inside. It's just a clean edge. Let's see if I can show you where that is. So it's just a clean edge in here. See, all of my rough seams are encased in this second part of the French seam. So it's really, really nice for something like pillowcases, because pillowcases get washed quite frequently, and you don't want any of that to fray and the seams to start to come undone, particularly when I'm donating or gifting pillowcases. So this is a really fun, easy tutorial. It is courtesy of Missouri Star. I will put the link to the tutorial. It's just a free YouTube video, and so I did 2 of those this weekend, and I'm really happy to have those done and ready to donate, and I will give give those, I will bring those to the guild meeting in October, and those will go. So I had some fun with the new to me sewing machine, and now I get to go on more sewing adventures. I have 2 quilts that I'm going to start coming up, and the reason I'm talking about 2, even though I'm usually a one at a time girl, is that I am going to be starting a block of the month quilt, which means a new block comes out each month. And so because I will have some time in between when the blocks come out, the new block comes out the first of each month. While I have some time between when the new blocks come out, I will also be working on a second quilt. So my plan is to get those started, not this weekend because I will be away this weekend, but then starting the following weekend. So about 2 weeks, I'm going to start a couple new quilts, and I will bring fabric to show you, and I will share with you what some of those are going to be on the next podcast. So I think that's all I have for you today. I know it's a little bit shorter than usual, but I hope that you are doing well and enjoying your crafts. I am really pleased with how productive I was this week, and it's really fun just sort of clearing the decks for new projects underway. I'm excited. What I am doing this coming weekend is I'm going to Quilt Market in Houston. It is my first time. It is an industry trade show for quilting and sewing, and so I expect that I will find quite a bit of inspiration. Obviously, my goal is to go for work and make some contacts and build some of our content for next year, which is what I am partially charged with. But I also hope that I will find some good inspiration on some projects for myself, although I don't seem to be running out of that in terms of quilting because everything is still new to me, so everything sounds good. Anyway, I hope that you have a lovely week ahead. I will say, as I always do, happy spinning, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy embroidering, sewing, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.